Hey y'all, today I want to talk about how to make better decisions. And it's going to help us unlock ways to think better about fishing plans, hunting plans, or even just kind of plans in life in general. And to do this, we're going to use the concept of marginal analysis. And I'll unpack that in just a second. But to frame this up right, let's start with a story. So a couple years back, we were fishing in Colombia, and we were not having a good day. And when we were in Colombia, we'd fish around 12 hours a day. You work really hard. We were doing a combination of fly fishing and spin fishing. So with fly fishing, you're doing this very active run and gun, pick up the fly rod, fight the wind, fight the waves. You're on a big old kind of bay boat, so it's not ready for fly fishing. So it's hard. And then the other type of fishing we were doing was spin fishing, where you're throwing a 6 to 8 inch popper against the rocks over and over and over again, and it's really physically demanding. And so we had this day that just wasn't going our way, and we were like, should we go in? And I think a lot of fishermen have thought about this before, right? When you have a long day of fishing and it's not going your way, are there some times where you just need to hang it up for the day, go back to wherever you're staying and have a beer and relax? And that was the decision that faced us, right? Like the guide was like, "Hey, we can try one more spot, or do y'all want to go in?" And we're like, "Man, I don't know." And so I think if we use marginal analysis from economics, it actually can help us with this decision. So let me unpack what I mean when I say marginal analysis. So in economics, when we say marginal, we are not talking about margin calls. We're actually not even talking about like profit margins. We're not even talking about the margins of a paper. When I say marginal, what I'm talking about is our definition of an incremental change to a plan of action, and specifically a small incremental change to a plan of action. So you may be like, well, then that sounds like way too much word salad. What in the heck is a incremental change to a plan of action? Tacos. All right. So imagine you're at a taco truck and you've had 3 tacos. They were awesome. You're like, man, this is really good. And you're like, should I get one more taco? That one more taco is an incremental change to your plan of action, right? You're like trying to think how many tacos you're going to eat. You've already eaten 3, and you're like, should I eat one more? That's when I say margin, we're talking about like one more, adding one more hour of fishing, one more taco to our plate, one more hunting spot to our calendar for the year. That's how we define at the margin or marginal. So, in marginal analysis, we want to think about that small incremental plan of action and how the benefits and the costs are related to one another, right? For every decision, there are going to be some benefits and there's going to be some costs. And so, in econ, we say a decision is good or proper or optimal or all these things if the benefits outweigh the cost, right? If the marginal benefits outweigh the marginal cost. And this is really important. So when we say marginal benefits, right, we're thinking about the marginal benefit of eating one taco. And this is easy, right? The happiness you would get from eating one more taco. What's the marginal cost? Well, of course, you got to pay a couple dollars for that taco. So in your head, you're going, okay, were the tacos better than $2? If they were, yeah, go grab you another taco because that's a good economic decision. The marginal benefits are higher than the marginal costs. It gets a little more tricky though when we actually are thinking about harder decisions like again in the outdoors and fishing. But I want to break down our Columbia story because I think it actually help us understand this a little more. Our guy turns and looks at us and says, "Hey, do y'all want to go try one more spot? Basically, do you want to fish for one more hour even though today hasn't been a good day of fishing?" Okay, well, let's start with the marginal cost. This is the easiest thing to calculate in a decision. Okay, what does it cost us to fish for one more hour? Now, in the United States, it's pretty typical that if you're going to fish more than your allotted hours with your guide, you're going to get charged for that. But in Colombia, they don't roll like that. A day is a day, sun up to sundown. They work hard. Our guide was super kind, and so the marginal cost for fishing monetarily was zero. So I didn't have to enter in a decision. That's great. But there are some other costs involved. So when we say costs, we also include from last video opportunity costs, right? The things you have to give up to get something else. And so this is where I feel like in fishing it, man, it hits rubber hits the road. So for us, if we fish for one more hour, we can't go back to the eco hotel we're staying at and have beers on the beach and relax. We can't wash up from the day and get our cameras reset, wipe down, and all our footage downloaded. Obviously, if we're on the boat, we can't do any of that. Um, like I was saying earlier, it's really physical fishing in Colombia. It's really, really hard. And so for every hour extra we're fishing, that's going to zap your energy for the next day, right? We had a couple guys who took spills on the boat, right? Slipped because it's kind of rainy, rainforest. Like you can think about if you fish for one more hour, there's a risk of injury, right? Because the longer you fish, the more tired you are, the more mistake prone you're going to be. So if you think about this, we now have this bucket, right, of marginal costs that we will accrue if we fish for one more hour. And so we need to think about those. Now, an accountant would stop right there and say, like, look at all those costs. We shouldn't do this. But yep, relax. This is econ. Economics, we also acknowledge the marginal benefits of a decision. So, what are the marginal benefits? Well, this is the lie every fisherman tells himself, right? If I stay out one more hour, I'm going to catch more fish. Or in this case, if we stay out one more hour, we're going to catch a fish, right? So, in this context, right, we were like, okay, we're going to spend one more hour trying one more spot because one fish, and I don't know if you've ever had this happen to you, but one fish could set a trip. One fish could turn it all around. And so we were like, you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's give one more hour. I mean, again, like the sun is setting as we say this, like, let's give it a go. And luck would have it, we're pulling, into this last spot. A bunch of tuna start foaming within eyesight of the hotel we're staying at. And one of the guys on the trip stands up, makes a beautiful cast because he's feeding tuna, and he catches one of the biggest tuna on the trip, right? That random benefit of the marginal benefit actually panned out. Now we all know, right? Typically, it doesn't go this way, but in this context, those marginal benefits, just the chance of that happening, was so much better than giving up. Which we did, giving up those beers on the beach, getting ready for the next day, getting rested, and all those things, right? We balanced the marginal benefits and the marginal cost. So let's think about another context, right? Let's think about hunting. So let's think about if you have a area that you know pretty well and you want to spend all of your hunting season going to that spot. And you are thinking, well, I've hunted this pretty hard the past 2 years. What if I added another hunting spot, right? So you had like one public piece of land that you know really well, and you're thinking about going somewhere else in your state and finding some more public land. Well, what are the marginal costs of this decision? Well, for every day or hour that I'm hunting at that new location, that's an hour I can't hunt at my old location, right? And so that's where, if you remember from the last video, that's opportunity cost all over again, right? I'm giving up the hunting that I know really well, the area I know really well, to try to get to this new location. So you're like, Ben, well, how do I know if I'm making the right decision? Well, let's think about the marginal benefits. What's the marginal benefits of finding this hunting in this new spot? It could be that you're finding more, higher quality, more solitude. Maybe you're wired that you like trying new things. You want to kind of invent a new challenge for yourself. Well, if that's the case, and those benefits are really weighty to you, then do it. Go find that new spot because you'll get the kind of the hype from trying a new spot. You'll have the rush of seeing your first deer at that spot, or if it's ducks, if you've seen the first ducks that are flying in, right? And you'll be like, man, I did this compared to the marginal cost, right, of hunting at your old spot. Now you can flip this on its head. It's different for every person. So I'm a person I would say who is an econ is risk averse, meaning like I'm not a huge risk taker without a lot of benefits. So if it's me and I know with a pretty certain parameter that there are good um, hunting details at this old spot I've been hunting at, I'm unlikely to take the risk on those marginal benefits. And again, this is why you should have lots of hunting buddies and lots of fishing buddies that challenge you, because then you get a nice like arguments on how should you balance the marginal benefits and marginal costs of trying new spots. But again, for me, I would likely stay at the old spot because that's what I know, and I don't value the new risk of taking on a new one. Maybe that makes me lame. Okay. Now, last one, and this is the one that'll tear up any credibility I have when we think about kind of like selling stuff in the outdoors, right? Should I buy that new rod, right? Or should I buy that new gun? Well, again, super easy here. What are the costs? Well, you've got to pay money for whatever you're buying. So if you're thinking about that new rod that you want for Christmas, right, you've got to pay the dollars to get it. So you're like, okay, Ben, I can count the costs. I know exactly how much those cost. What about the benefits? And this is where I kind of go back and forth. If you're a technique focused person, then it may make sense for you to invest in that new rod or new gun because it's going to allow you to unlock a new technique that'll make you more productive. Now, if you're like me, who's kind of agnostic about all different techniques and you just can get it done with pretty simple amounts of gear, then the cost you would apply for that rod or that gun are likely not going to have a lot of marginal benefits. So again, if you're thinking about a new rod and it's $100, right? You can think about it of like, okay, I'm going to give up $100 to get this rod, but will it give me $100 of benefit? Will it make me catch $100 more worth of fish? And typically the answer is going to be no. No, that's lame, but the answer is going to be no. So then we can even kind of drill this down further, right? If it's not going to give me $100 of benefit, what else could I give that $100 for? And I think this is where kind of the guys and I from Dorsal have thought a lot about this, is that if you give up those dollars that you would spend on gear and save them towards being able to try something new, right? Drive down to the coast, use some gas money to go down to the coast, drive up to the mountains, try somewhere new. Well, those memories from trying that new experience are probably going to be better than just buying a new piece of gear. And so the marginal benefit of that gear would be better expended to something else. And again, if you see that where this is coming all the way back to opportunity cost, right? It's not that the fishing rod costs $100. It's that I have to give up $100 to get it. And what else could I use that $100 for? And so when we think about kind of the economics of the outdoors, it's always going to be coming back to opportunity cost over and over again, even when we're talking about how to make the best decision. All right. Hope y'all have a good day. Drink some coffee. Talk to y'all soon.